Today, we're going to break down a real-world story that is, well, it's a pretty terrifying example of how one teeny-tiny business decision, a choice made just to save a little cash, can absolutely spiral into a massive financial disaster for a healthcare practice. It's a story about risk, regulation, and a single choice that ended up costing a fortune. $120,000. Just let that sink in for a second. And that number? That doesn't even include the lawyer fees. So how in the world does a situation get this bad? Let's follow the breadcrumbs back, because the first domino that knocked everything else over wasn't some huge, obvious mistake. It was a decision that, honestly, probably seemed pretty smart at the time. You heard that right. The whole chain reaction that led to that monster payout kicked off about 6 years ago. A successful dental practice decided, hey, let's cancel our compliance subscription. The owner had just hired a new office manager who was super confident she could handle all that regulatory stuff in-house. And why not? It would save the practice a couple $100 a month. Seems like a no-brainer, right? Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting. This wasn't some sudden explosion. Nope, this was more like a ticking time bomb. And the timer started the second they decided to handle compliance all on their own. So let's walk through the anatomy of this lawsuit step by painful step. This timeline really tells the whole story, doesn't it? Year 1, they cancel that subscription to save about $200 a month. For 3 whole years, everything's fine. It feels like they totally made the right call. But then year 4 hits. They hire a disgruntled employee, and she's the match that's about to light the fuse. She fakes an injury, quits, and then files a labor dispute because she knows exactly where all the bodies are buried, all those little compliance gaps that were ignored for years, and that is what leads to the massive financial blowup in year 5. So let's do the final brutal math here. You've got the $120,000 settlement, plus about $30,000 in legal fees. The grand total? A jaw-dropping $150,000. All of that to save about $2,400 a year. It's just a gut punch of a lesson in how trying to save a little can end up being the most expensive decision you ever make. Now, it's really easy to look at this and think, wow, what a crazy 1 in a million story. But this is where we need to zoom out, because what happened here, it shines a huge spotlight on a threat that so many practices are facing, probably without even realizing it. The very same vulnerabilities that blew up this one practice exist in thousands of others right now as we speak. Seriously, think about it for a minute. That disgruntled employee, she knew how to weaponize the rules from OSHA, the Department of Health, the Labor Board, all at the same time. She knew just where to poke to make things fall apart. So you have to ask yourself, are you ready for that? Could your practice stand up to that kind of intense scrutiny if someone decided to start digging? And get this, you don't even need a disgruntled employee to find yourself in deep financial trouble. Just a standard run-of-the-mill inspection from an agency like OSHA or the EPA can uncover problems that turn into fines of $150,000 to $250,000. We're not talking about a little slap on the wrist here. These are the kinds of penalties that can absolutely cripple a practice. But here's where it gets really scary. Let's say an inspector comes in and finds some OSHA violations. Okay, that's bad enough. But what if they also find gaps in how you're protecting patient privacy or your HIPAA security? Well, then the penalties don't just add up, they multiply, like exponentially. Suddenly, you're talking about fines that can shoot past $500,000. It's truly a financial perfect storm. And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? Look at that jump. The bar on the left is the cost of those typical violations, which is already sky high. But the bar on the right? That's what happens when you throw HIPAA problems into the mix. The risk just goes through the roof. It becomes absolutely business-threatening. So you're looking at all these overlapping risks and probably thinking, what's the solution? Do I have to become an expert on OSHA and HIPAA and everything else? Well, the answer isn't to make things even more complicated by hiring a different person for every little thing. The smart move is to simplify. So you've really got 2 ways of looking at this. On the left, there's the old way. You're juggling a bunch of different vendors for every compliance area. It's a mess, it's inefficient, and as we just saw, it leaves these huge, dangerous gaps. But on the right, you've got the smart way. Everything under one roof. One single partner who makes sure absolutely nothing slips through the cracks. And a real solution isn't just about a manual sitting on a shelf collecting dust, right? It's about actual, tangible protection. Things like a financial guarantee against fines, a promise that you'll pass inspections, and even having a live expert in your corner if an inspector shows up out of the blue. The whole idea is to have a team that holds your practice to the highest standards in the country, no matter where you are.
You might be thinking this sounds like a huge, complicated project, but it really doesn't have to be. In fact, a good system should be incredibly simple. Let's just look at a clear, three-step path to getting your practice totally protected.
A good system is all about taking this headache off your plate. It starts with a simple assessment to see exactly where your risks are. Then you move to implementation, getting all the tools in place from manuals to training your staff, and finally, the protect phase. That's the ongoing support, the updates, and that all-important financial guarantee. It's a straight line from being exposed to being protected.
And what's the end result of a process like this? Well, you see it right here in this quote. This is what it's all about. Real practices, facing real inspections, and passing with flying colors. Zero issues. It's just proof that this kind of comprehensive approach actually works when it matters most. You know, this is about more than just dodging fines. When you create an environment that's verifiably safe and compliant, you're showing a real commitment to your team. That builds trust, it builds morale, and honestly, that's an asset you just can't put a price on. At the end of the day, when the stakes are this high, it all comes down to trust and a proven track record. Finding a solution that's been protecting thousands of practices for decades, well, that gives you a level of confidence that's pretty much impossible to get when you're trying to do it all yourself. So really, what this all boils down to is one simple thing. It's about getting that constant, nagging stress of compliance off your shoulders for good. It frees you up, it frees your team up, and it lets you stop worrying about audits and lawsuits and instead put 100% of your energy into what you're actually there to do. Take amazing care of your patients.
So I'll just leave you with this one question. After everything we've talked about today, from a single employee causing a six-figure lawsuit to the kind of massive fines that can come out of nowhere, this is maybe the most important question any practice owner has to answer. Is your practice, your team, and your own peace of mind truly protected?